Hello friends, for today's video I wanted to go through a list of some anticipated releases for the month of September. Feel free to let me know what books you're looking forward to for September. They don't have to just be fantasy. Feel free to just mention anything that you're really excited about. I find typically September and October is when I see a lot of books coming out, but this particular year I'm not sure what it is. I'm not finding nearly as many, and maybe it's just that fantasy isn't having as many releases, but other genres are. But regardless, there are still some by some pretty big names that are expected to be released in September, so I'll definitely go through those, and then I'll mention a few other ones that maybe aren't as well known. So first up, we have The Gods Below. I really loved the first series by this author, which would be The Bone Shard Daughter. Drowning Empire is the name of the trilogy itself. I thought it was really creative, very innovative, very different. I thought she did cool things with the perspectives, meaning she utilized both first and third-person perspectives. I also found that the world itself was really interesting and that it was somewhat a blend of different genres. So I have been highly anticipating whatever the author was going to put out next, and we're already getting something pretty soon after completing her first trilogy, which I think is great. So a little bit about this new one. In this sweeping epic fantasy comes a story of magic, betrayal, love, and loyalty where two sisters will clash on opposite sides of a war against the gods. A divine war shattered the world, leaving humanity in ruins. Desperate for hope, they struck a deal with the devious god Cluin. He would restore the world to its former glory, but at a price so steep it would keep the mortals indebted to him for eternity. And as each land was transformed, so too were its people changed into strange new forms, if they survived at all. Hakara is not willing to pay such a price. Desperate to protect herself and her sister Rasha, she flees her homeland for the safety of a neighboring kingdom. But when tragedy separates them, Hakara is forced to abandon her beloved sister to an unknown fate. Alone and desperate for answers on the wrong side of the world, Hakara discovers she can channel the magic from the mysterious gems they are forced to mine for the god. With that discovery comes another. Her sister is alive, and only the rebels plotting to destroy the God Pact can help rescue her, but only if Hakara goes to war against a god. I think that sounds so good. I've been trying to avoid seeing too much about it. I just kind of wanted to know a general idea, and then that was it. So this is the first time that I've read through the entirety of the synopsis, and it sounds even better than the little snippets that I've been getting. I can't wait. Next up, we have We Need No Wings. This one seems like it's going to be maybe more literary fantasy. It says, to be free, we must learn to fly. Tara Sanchez has always known who she was, a professor, a wife, a mother, and a friend. But when her husband dies unexpectedly, she finds herself completely broken. Taking a leave from the university, Tara hopes that she can mourn her husband and get back on her feet, but instead she spends a year consumed by grief, until the day she levitates. Suddenly, her life is thrown into disarray, and the repeated incidents of levitation not only make her question her sanity, but also put her in danger. She decides she will do anything to stop them. So when she's reminded that her family is related to the renowned levitating mystic Saint Teresa of Avila, she leaves the refuge of her home and travels to Spain, hoping to find answers. But saints can be elusive, and not all answers are easily found. She'll soon have to decide whether to remain shrouded in her grief or open her heart to a world where we need no wings to fly. That sounds very, very heavy, very depressing. I get very sad just thinking about that, because if I even imagine something, not the levitating part, but if I imagine the other parts that lead to her grief, it just makes me filled with sadness. So that sounds like it has the potential to be extremely devastating, but incredibly, incredibly moving. Next up, we have one that I don't know how much this is an anticipated release for other people, but I'm planning on picking it up when I can, and that would be Vilest Things. I can't say too much about this one as it is a sequel, but it is specifically the sequel to Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong. If you're interested in hearing specifics about that, I will have a video I did dedicated to it in the description bar down below. It's kind of a hybrid of a little bit of a review, but also a conversation about some other elements that I think influenced the perception we had of this book, the marketing of this book, and the reception. But regardless, this is the sequel. So if you didn't know, if you were somebody who enjoyed Immortal Longings, you've been waiting for the sequel, it is projected to be released in September. From there, we have An Academy for Liars. This one says, a student will find that the hardest lessons sometimes come from outside the classroom in this stunning dark academia novel. Dark academia is very hit or miss for me, And I think there are a lot of people that have really in-depth and interesting discussions about what even is dark academia and the way in which we feel sometimes repulsed by the characters or the themes within it, but that is sort of an integral part of the genre itself. So I know that it's not always for people. I think the idea of academia is something a lot of us are drawn to, but dark academia is something a little different. But regardless, I have yet to find, I think, my dark academia story, so maybe this will be the one. It says, Lennon Carter's life is falling apart. Then she gets a mysterious phone call inviting her to take the entrance exam for the Drayton College, a school of magic hidden in a secret pocket of Savannah. Lennon has been chosen because, like everyone else at the school, she has the innate gift of persuasion, the ability to wield her will like a weapon, using it to control others and, in rare cases, matter itself. That's what really sold me, is already the persuasion element feels very fitting of dark academia. However, the idea that potentially she can use her will to control matter, I think that sounds awesome. But continuing on, after passing the test, she begins to learn how to master her devastating and unsettling power, but despite persuasion's heavy toll on her body and her mind, she is wholly captivated by her studies, by Drayton's lush, moss-draped campus, and by her brilliant classmates. But even more captivating is her charismatic advisor, Dante. What a dark academia guy's name. Anyway, who both intimidates and enthralls her. As she continues in her studies, her control grows and she starts to uncover more about the secret world she has entered into, including the disquieting history of Drayton College. She is increasingly disturbed by what she learns, for it seems that the ultimate test is to embrace absolute power without succumbing to corruption, and it's a test she's terrified she's going to fail. It's still that matter itself part that's kidding me, but regardless, I do think that sounds interesting. Next up, we have A Hunger with No Name. The description for this one says, Thureva of Ostrava is intended to become a herder, a most honored position for her dwindling community that clings to life on the banks of the Najimov, the river that's the lifeblood of the high desert. But the glass city on the horizon threatens the delicate balance the Ostravans have managed to hold on to for centuries, polluting the air and water as the city grows bigger and bigger. The Glass City's clockwork liaisons offer to bring the Ostravans into the Glass City walls, but they will have to give up their ways and their precious herds to do so. Thureva must decide who she is without her animals, using the stars as her guide, putting herself on a collision course with the secrets the Glass City holds dear. A Hunger with No Name is a coming-of-age tale with an environmental focus featuring an immersive fantasy setting inspired, in part, by the high desert of New Mexico. That one definitely sounds very different from a lot of the other ones, not just from this list, but I feel like a lot of other things that are popular in fantasy currently doesn't really fit with a lot of the trends. The environmental element to me always makes me think of Studio Ghibli, but it definitely seems like almost a tiny bit more like Nausicaa, because Nausicaa is one of the only ones that has more of a desert sort of feeling to it. It's not quite a desert, but I find most of the time they're pretty lush. And this one seems like it's got those environmental elements like Studio Ghibli, but with a different setting than what we find in those. Next up, we have an Anthony Ryan release, which would be A Tide of Black Steel. The land of Ascarlia, a fabled realm of bloodied steel and epic sagas, has been ruled by the sister queens for centuries. No one has dared question their rule until now. Whispers speak of longships of mysterious tattooed warriors sailing under the banner of a murderous cult of oathbreakers long thought extinct. I almost said distinct, sorry. Long thought extinct. A tide of black steel that threatens to vanquish all in its path. Thera of the Black Spear, favored servant of the Sister Queens, is ordered to uncover the truth. As Thera sails north, her reviled brother, Felnir, sets out on his own adventure. He hopes to find the vault of the Altvar, the treasure room of the gods, and win the Sister Queen's favor at his sister's expense. Both siblings, along with a brilliant young scribe and a prisoner with a terrifying primal power, will play a part in the coming storm. The Age of Wrath has begun. I mean, I'm already intrigued because it's Anthony Ryan, and I really loved Bloodsong, and I do think Anthony Ryan's writing is quite exquisite. I think it's phenomenal, but that also sounds pretty awesome. So I'm excited not just because it's Anthony Ryan, but because it sounds good, and it is supposed to be the first in a new trilogy. So if we do end up liking it, it would seem there are going to be 2 more. But that's it for some anticipated releases for the month of September. As I said at the beginning, if you have any of your own, feel free to mention those in the comments. I'm sure I'm forgetting some. And then I will have all of the relevant information, so the projected release dates and any pre-order links to all of these in the description bar if you want to reference back to them. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.